This episode of the Jesse T Show is brought to you by 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. This year, many people have lots of money questions. Finding the right information can be tough, and more importantly, finding someone that you like and have confidence in is even tougher. If you'd like to keep more of your money, and more importantly, if you'd like to stop trading time for money and live the life you deserve, contact 46 and 2 Wealth Partners today. Right now, Jesse T Show listeners will receive a free 15-minute phone call that will leave you with at least one idea on how to keep or make more money. Text promo code Jesse T Show to phone number 202-301-4503. Paul Spiers, brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jesse.
It's an honor, brother. I'm very thankful and grateful for you and all that you're doing. And, you are into some pretty cool shit. And I want to talk about some of that stuff. So just for a little bit of context, if you could share with us kind of an overview of who you are, what you do, and what you got going on today.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a business person, an entrepreneur for maybe 30 years, just over 30 years. I'm what you'd call a persistent entrepreneur rather than necessarily a successful one. I've had a few good hits and a few good fails in that process through the last 30 years. But if you're a passionate idealist, you keep coming up with these ideas and you've got to keep testing them, and some work and some don't. At the moment, I'm host of the New P&L Principles in Leadership and Business podcast series. And I'm also founder and CEO of the New P&L Brand Purpose Institute. And that's a business that sort of works with leaders to help them rediscover, redefine, realign their purpose and their principles in the business. And most importantly, because I know there's a lot of skepticism and fluff around purpose out there at the moment, but most importantly, to align that purpose and those principles with their commercial ambitions, and to ensure that those purposes and those principles are delivered in the business day after day, month after month.
So there's a lot there that we're going to dive into. I'm excited to tease out all of that, but the entrepreneurial journey, and for many people, it's most people, it's a long game. It's not necessarily. It's very rare that you have someone come out the gates and just knock it out of the park for the rest of their entrepreneurial journey. So talk a little bit about kind of where you started with that and some of those experiences, and kind of what you took from those experiences to today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm someone who thinks, that we are, and my current business is, the cumulative aggregation of 30 years of experience and learning and successes and failures. I've run my own surfwear clothing brand. I've run marketing agencies and launched them. I've worked in the photographic sector. I was a professional musician for many years. And what I've found with the New P&L, which is only a recent venture in the last 18 months, is that all of that experience from when I left school at 16, there's something that I can take from every job, every entrepreneurial venture I've launched, succeeded or failed at, and it's all fed into the New P&L. It's like everything is strangely and weirdly converged together at this point. And I think, to touch on your point, that's a really interesting lesson for me, particularly, that you don't have to be a success at 20 or 25 or 30 or 35. And a lot of the perception out there at the moment is that entrepreneurs are young and successful, whereas you can be successful at any age as an entrepreneur. And part of my mission now at 51 is to try and engender some faith and confidence and belief in some of those older entrepreneurs, that there is still life and still ideas that can be created and driven into the market, I think, at whatever age you happen to be.
Well, it seems like you're inspiring, even just the way that you carry yourself. You don't look like you're 51, brother. You look like you're about friggin' 35. So, so whatever it is you're doing, do more of it. Do you have a self-care protocol? Do you do any health and wellness stuff, fitness? Are you in any of that stuff?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've got, my first self-care is spending time with my children. That is, for anyone who's a parent, they know that is the best self-care, because they give you unconditional love. They give you the enjoyment that you can't get out of any other element of life, I think. In addition to that, I surf quite regularly. That's a big part of my world. I've never found a sport that gives you such a contrast of adrenaline, punctuated with spirituality. You can sit out the back of the sets waiting for those waves, and you feel very much one with nature. Then you're on that wave, and it is huge punch of adrenaline, and you cut along that wave and do what you do. Then you come off, and you're sitting back with the waves lapping, around you again. It's an incredibly meditative experience. It's an awesome experience, surfing. I do a bit of running in the hills and that sort of thing with a dog. And I spend quite a lot of time recently discovered with Wim Hof doing the breathing and the cold showers, which is an absolute shock when you first get into that side of things. But that's an incredible experience as well. It's so that is my welfare package, if you like, for myself.
It's beautiful. I found personally that my health and wellness, self-care routine, which includes most of the similar things, family, even introspection and a little bit of discernment and time alone to kind of get thoughts where they need to be and hear those thoughts, feel those thoughts. And then all the physical stuff, there's the yin and the yang, there's the breath work, there's the mindfulness, and then there's the hammering with the dog up the hill, there's the running and pounding. And it's a beautiful, offset, and it helps you prepare, from what I've found, to be ready for the day, to be ready for conversations, and, your mind's open, your heart's open, your body's fluid. There's all these things that are happening. And I'm a little jealous about the surfing, because I grew up in Boston and there wasn't a lot of opportunity to surf. And I always wanted to surf. The waves are minimal at best. Yep. And you really can't pick a wave up. And I used to follow a lot of surfing, and if you look at the greats, I'm sure Laird Hamilton and some of these other guys, but Laird Hamilton is a specimen. You look at him, the way he takes care of his body, he looks like he's carved from stone. I mean, surfing is a badass sport. You're dealing with Mother Nature, and she's unforgiving. Have you ever had any experiences out on the waves that are, like, you ever run into any sharks? Did you ever have any waves that you thought you weren't coming back from? Have you ever had any journeys like that?
I've never had any sharks, touch wood. I have had, like every surfer, I've had a few experiences where you're held under and you're not sure where the top is. I mean, I'm not anywhere near the Laird Hamilton world of surfing, but in my own world of surfing, I've had those experiences, getting caught in the rips and getting dragged out or dragged across or wherever it happens to be. But I think, surfing's a wonderful analogy for business in some respects as well, because you spend a long time paddling out through those waves, getting knocked back, paddling out, getting knocked back, getting 3 feet forward, 1 or 2 feet back as the wave takes you back. And you finally get out the back, and then you wait for that beautiful wave. And then you're on that wave for whatever it happens to be, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 seconds. But that's the sweet spot of all of your effort comes down to that small amount of time. And it's very similar in business. You spend a lot of time working hard, getting knocked back, pushing yourself forward, believing, and then something great happens. And that's that win in business. And then you go back to push, and knock back and forward and push back. And then you get that win again. And so I think surfing's a wonderful perspective and analogy for business as well, because of all of that. If someone said to you, you'll spend 2 hours in the sea and you might get 10 minutes on the waves in total, it sounds like a ridiculous effort for such a small amount of time on the wave. But actually that 10 minutes is worth the 2 hours worth of effort. It's the most incredible feeling. And a win in business is exactly the same. You make the effort for that one day that you win.
It's some beautiful parallels. And like you said, metaphors for business where, you're constantly pushing towards a goal, even if only for a brief moment. But you have the blind faith that even the journey, I'm sure that even just being out in nature and the salt air has healing properties, and being in the water. I mean, yes, it's work, and yes, you may have 10 minutes of the wave, but you're still a part of the journey, which is pretty cool too. Absolutely. And so to have that, North Star, in a sense, whether it's business, whether it's in anything you're doing in training, it's great to work towards that, but people fall in love with the process too. And that's Absolutely. A great metaphor for business. And so, another piece of your self-care, I think, that ties beautifully into life and into business is breathing. And, doing Wim Hof, and for those that are listening, probably heard of Wim Hof, but Wim Hof is the Iceman. And he's the guy that set all sorts of world records for, dealing sub-zero temperatures, pretty much with just shorts on, doing hikes with just shoes and shorts, in the Arctic, and, submerging himself in ice for many, many hours. And his breathing protocol, it's very specific, and it helps to open up the mind, open up the body. There's all sorts of healing properties to it where even on a mitochondrial level, on a cell level, it starts to repair cells and make your immune system stronger. And then coupled with the cold therapy, that reduces inflammation and does all sorts of wonders. So it's also toughening your mind with the cold therapy, but the breathing is opening your mind. So you have these beautiful contrasts of work that you're doing. How did you find Wim Hof, and what have you seen that it's doing for you in your daily life?
I think like any entrepreneur, you are flooded with ideas every day. And I'm not saying all those ideas are good ideas, but you are flooded with thinking and ideas and how to twist and turn and improve and build. So there's no downtime in your mind. And what the breathing is giving me, what the breathing part of Wim Hof is giving me is an opportunity to switch off. So first and foremost, it's an opportunity just to be focused on the breathing, just to focus on me, just to focus on that moment. And taking a moment away from the rush of the day is absolutely critical if we're to rebuild ourselves to have great ideas the next day. The second part of that great experience with the Wim Hof breathing is, I mean, I'm surprised how much I'm holding my breath for now. And those are micro challenges, aren't they? They are minute challenges. When we think about challenges every day, we think about these big ambitions to strive towards and everything else. All I'm trying to do, and all you're trying to do when you do Wim Hof, is get another 10 seconds of holding your breath, or 5 seconds, or 3 seconds, or beat the last round. And that's a micro achievement that gives you an enormous sense of success and something you'd never think of. Well, why would breathing give you a sense of such tremendous success? We do it all day, every day. So I think the peace, the taking away from everything, the tranquility that it gives you, the focus on you, and the micro challenges is wonderful. It's just given me a moment to consider things in the world and to play with my mind and to keep away from what we need to be doing every day in business, because I think you need that break.
For sure. You got to find ways to create space and to get into altered states even naturally. And breathing is used by many cultures around the world, and it does so many different things. And I've had my journey with breathing where I was introduced to Wim Hof a couple of years ago, and I found him through some thought leaders, Aubrey Marcus and Joe Rogan and some other guys that are really into, like, I think Tom Bilyeu might have had him on, and impact theory, and just his whole protocol and what it's been able to do for him. I'm someone that's into those things. Like, I guess they kind of call it biohacking, where you can do these protocols to your mind and your body and all these different, even your spirit, and you can alter those things, and you can do it in a healthy way. I started with Wim Hof on a January challenge, the Wim Hof shower challenge. And it was 2 years ago, January 2 years ago. And it was 20 seconds with the shower on the coldest setting. Yeah. And then every day, I think it was an incremental add of like 10 seconds. And then by the end of the month, you're up to a couple minutes. And by day 4, I was like, screw it. And I was just taking cold showers. And it's interesting because now generally all I take is cold showers with the random like hot shower, but I take a cold shower all the time. And it's led me to a point where I was telling you before we jumped on, I was at a guy's retreat, men's retreat, transformational experience this weekend. And we were in the lake in North Georgia, and it was 41 degrees in the lake. And it was beautiful. And what it does for energy and mindset and healing, it's incredible. So I love that you're using those tools to be able to augment your reality. And it's fun. I mean, breath and this stuff, I nerd out on this stuff, but breath, when you think about it, it's what keeps you alive. It's one of the main things that keep you alive. And with breathing, it's something that you can really control. And so if you could tap into these protocols, there's this word pneuma, Pneuma, which is spirit, breath of life. We were, born with life, breath breathed into us, and that's what gave us life. And so it's such a powerful tool that many of the great entrepreneurs like Tony Robbins and everybody that's across, the spectrum uses these things. And so kind of moving back into the entrepreneurial journey and where you're at today, talk a little bit about, what you're doing with the podcast and some of the things you're doing with business activities.
Yeah, absolutely. With the new P&L, both with the podcast and with the Institute, I guess I'm on I don't want this to sound too grand a term, but I'm on a bit of a mission, to try and play my own small role in helping business leaders to think more about the characteristics that define their leadership, the principles that define the company and the purpose that defines their actions. And I want to go back to the breathing, but I almost want to help leaders to take a step back and look at the way they're leading a business, the way the company is shaping up as a result, the values that embody the culture, and what they're trying to do to change the world, not just to produce product, but how are they contributing to the world and the community and the society they work in and they develop for, rather than just being a passive part that produces products or services, for example. So through the people I interview on the new P&L, through the companies I work with the Institute, we're just trying to get leaders to breathe and to think differently, more holistically about the principles, how they deliver those principles and purpose in their business, and what that will mean for the end user, for the consumer, for the customer, for the society, for their employees and their stakeholders.
Where were you inspired to put this together? I'm sure the experiences, but like, are there other influences that inspired you, and kind of what was the catalyst for getting this all going?
A few years back, I had a marketing agency, was one of my entrepreneurial ventures. We were doing reasonably well, reasonably successful. I experienced, I guess, a series of events, very unethical events, or was a recipient of a series of unethical events. And it brought the business and me to my knees. It took us a while to recover from that. I thought at the time, being a marketeer, the new P&L came into my head, that there's got to be a better way to do business than just profit and loss. There's got to be a better way, and that better way is principles and leadership, the new P&L. That idea hung around in my head for a while as I undertook various other ventures, but it kept revisiting me all of the time. And about 18 months, 2 years ago, I thought, well, I'm going to try. I need to do something with this idea. It's been curating fermenting for a long, long time. So let's give it a shot. So I started with the podcast, dip my toe in, see how it would turn out. And it just seemed to create its own momentum. We had people knocking on the door to be guests on the show. We saw the audience numbers just continue to increase, which gave me the confidence to believe that actually I've tapped into something here. Something has resonated with the audience, both with those who want to participate in it, but also those that are listening to it. So that grew over the last 12 months. We launched the new P&L to the Point, which is our weekly analysis, in October. We're now launching a book review, so we'll have 3 different episodes from January, and the Institute was launched in September as well. So it's been a journey of trying to figure out, as many things, that it's come out of adverse circumstances, trying to find the right vehicle for the concept. And then, as you know yourself, then it's just bang, 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 hard work to get it turning over and moving forward.
So what are the new principles in leadership, archetypes, or the methods, or some of the learnings that you've found that are implemented in this, this is really a movement in a sense. This is something where I feel there's people that have been out there that are talking about conscious business and being a leader versus a manager, someone who's a servant leader type thing, someone who operates with empathy, someone who actually gives a shit about their people and would essentially, sounds kind of glorious and romantic, but like die on their shield for their people. Like, I will lead you into battle. I'll be on the front lines with you. And what that looks like for a lot of times is, if you're in a sales position, years ago, I was in a sales company where I used to do outside sales, and I made it to a point where I was in an office, running a franchise, managing those outside salespeople. And it was very important for you to stay relevant and understand what was going on with your people by getting into the field and going door to door with these people. And that wasn't comfortable, because you've moved from door to door sales and you've worked your ass off to get to this point where you're managing and you're in the office, and it's more, you get comfortable, right? You get comfortable. You want to put your shoes up on the desk, and I've arrived, and like, I'm making a lot of money, and like, I don't have to go out there and hump it in the field 8 to 12 hours a day. But staying relevant matters. And also what that does is it shows your people that you're in the fight with them. So I think it's super important to lead from the front. It's something I've always kind of carried a flag on for myself. But what are some of those things like that, or other things that are within the whole, mantra mindset of the new P&L?
The best thing in my mind that a leader, and it actually goes back to the breathing discussion we had earlier, but the best thing in my mind that a leader can bring to the table as an acute and a genuine sense of self-awareness, and to go back to the breathing thing, we can read all of the business books or self-help books we want in the world, but actually what we have, the best weapon we have, or the best tool we have for ourselves, is actually the essence of our very being. We breathe every day. That's all we do. That's the fundamental essence of who we are. And that is the greatest tool we have. And yet we look outside for everything. And similarly with a business leader, rather than looking at all these other things that could help the business, the first step that a leader can take is to genuinely reevaluate themselves and have the awareness and the authentic and genuine awareness and question themselves, because everyone thinks they're self-aware. No one thinks they're not self-aware, but actually let's question the fundamentals of what you believe that self-awareness is based on. Be hard on yourself, be honest with yourself,
Yep.
Recognize your strengths and particularly your weaknesses, because self-awareness will lead to all of the other characteristics that a leader needs. When you're self-aware, then you have an understanding. When you have an understanding, you recognize perspective, and you understand that the person who's just come into the business and you who's been in the business for 30 years and you're earning X amount, they're earning X amount, and you expect them to commit to the same level of the business as you. But why is that? What's their background? What are their hopes and aspirations? They're not a number at a desk. They are a person with desires and needs. And if you can tap into those motivating factors within that individual, you'll get them. They'll become more loyal. They'll become more productive. They'll believe in the purpose of you and the business. But you won't be able to do any of that if you're not self-aware enough to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses, your perspective on life, and have an understanding and an empathy for others. So all of the words around trust and integrity and all of these other things, they are crucial and important, but you can't have any of them without having a genuine sense of self-awareness, because otherwise you breathe subjective context onto those things. And you think, well, why wouldn't someone trust me? But if you haven't looked inside yourself to actually question why they would or they wouldn't, then you can't expect trust.
People
so
are
it comes
smart.
down to breathing.
Yeah. And people, I love all that context because it lends to showing up well in the world, and whether that's business, relationships, for self, whatever that is. And also people are really smart. People feel, we have an intuition that, some people are more primed on, but we can feel when someone's bullshitting us, or someone's not being authentic, or they're regurgitating something they heard. There's no passion, there's no vigor, there's no honesty. And I think the honesty piece that you mentioned is one of the biggest parts of being self-aware. And it starts with being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And, humility comes with that. And hopefully you can get a healthy dose of that and kind of, break the ego down in some of those moments.
Absolutely.
Where, yes, you're a leader. Yes, you're someone who may be managing people or managing a project, but every human has the capacity to lead, I believe, in certain times and areas. They may not be a consistent, ongoing leader, but there's moments where everyone can show up and add their part. And the humility part is recognizing that and being a student and having empathy. So if you can learn from someone who's brand new, in that illustration you gave us, the 30-year-old person that has this new entry-level person, especially if you kind of started there, you should have some empathy built in you. And the biggest thing is to not lose touch with reality, right?
Absolutely.
I've seen this a lot of times where people, I even mentioned it in my scenario, my first business that I did really well in, I felt like I had arrived and I kind of got a little lazy. And it took an Achilles tendon rupture for me to really get humbled and get my ass back out in the field. And I was walking around with an Achilles tendon rupture, putting up numbers, and it was inspiring for myself and inspiring for those around me. And so it really taught me about, get back in the field, roll up the sleeves, keep touch, like Gary Vee, like clouds and dirt, get out in the field, do the dirty work, but you can operate in the clouds too. And you can be that manager. But I think being relevant, being honest, and being empathetic is the game, brother. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from New Zealand originally, although I'm based in the UK now. The New Zealand rugby side, the All Blacks, they have a mantra. I mean, they are the most successful sports team, regardless of discipline, ever in the world.
That's insane.
Country of 4 million people. But their mantra is better people make better All Blacks. And the same application could be given to anything in life. Better people make better business people. Better people make better parents. The better you are as an individual, the more honest work you do on yourself internally to recognize, as I said earlier, strengths, weaknesses, and so on, the more humility you have, as you said. The All Blacks, as famous as they are and successful as they are, they still tidy the changing room before they leave, because why should someone else clean up after them? And it's those little, to go back to the point I made with surfing, those little micro things that you do every day, the little micro steps that you make, the recognition for someone, the taking the time to send a card or write an email, pick up the phone and thank you. Thank you is an enormously powerful phrase that is often neglected, I think, in business, because, we're paying you, so here's the expectation of what you need to deliver. But we're not robots. We still need to be thanked and appreciated and recognized. And the more we are, the greater we become, and the more productive we are and the more loyal we are, as I said. So, the better we are as an individual, the better we're going to be as a business person.
Yep. I think there's a beautiful shift in how people are doing business and how people operate, either in a entrepreneurial journey or in a corporate journey, where over the last few years, there's been so much information passed around that I feel like, even from my experience when I was younger, let's say, I'm 39. So let's say 20 years ago, and I was kind of just getting my feet wet with career. There was a lot of people that were kind of playing a role. There was a lot of people that were looking to the old archetypes of a boss, which was lead with fear, which was, make your people afraid so they'll do the job. But what people started finding through the years is fear is a momentary motivator, but it's inspiration and motivation and love, essentially, just to get a little bit spiritual here. It's those things that go the distance. It's those things where you want to pull through for each other and you care about each other, and you're not worried if you're going to get fired if you don't do something right, because then that creates poor work, and then maybe people get sloppy because their mind's focused on the negative versus building the one team, one fight kind of mentality. So I think it's super important for any leader at any level to really remain humble and do the things that got you there in the first place, and try not to lose touch with those things.
Yeah, agreed.
So as far as the podcast, right? So how does this all tie into the podcast, and what has that experience been like for you? The people that you've met, the opportunities that have come along, the impact you've made, what has that done for you in your life?
I mean, it has been, the last 18 months has been quite incredible from my perspective. To go back to the point you just made, this was all set up to focus on principles, as I've said, in leadership and business, and look at empathy and kindness and understanding and so on. The generosity that I have received over the last 18 months since I started the podcast, and I've written about this in a couple of blogs last year, has been extraordinary. When you set out to serve, it's incredible how many doors open to you, how open people are. And, the whole adage that you've just suggested about the old business driven on fear, I haven't experienced any of that in the last 12 months. I've been welcomed with open arms. Doors have been opened all over the place. People have helped wherever they could. The guests have been amazing. I mean, I'm someone who has spent my whole life consuming information, and now I feel like I'm in my dream job, because every week all I get to do now is research topics, research the guests, research what they're interested in, join dots in ways that I hope no one else has, ask interesting questions of interesting people, and get a flood of information coming to me each week. And it is like a dream. It's unbelievable. The last 18 months have been phenomenal for me, because as I said right at the beginning, I feel like I've finally, after 35 years in business, landed on my feet in terms of where I'm supposed to be. And I described it to a few people recently. I felt for many years I've been standing in the right field. I've been in the creative industries. I've been in the content industries. So I've been standing in the right field, but facing the wrong way. And something 18 months ago made me turn around and realize, shit, I'm supposed to be running for that goal line, not that goal line. And since then, it has just been straight for the goal. And I mean, I can't, sound too evangelical if I say anything more, because it's just, it's crazy. It's just amazing how passionate and how invigorated and how motivated I feel about the last 18 months.
You lit up when you started talking about it, and you could feel the love and the passion for it, brother. And it's obviously changing your life by being in concert and in communication with other people and doing life with other people.
Yes.
Can you go back, as you said, try to identify this if we can, but you said something happened and helped you get started. Was there a muse? Was there an inception? Was there something that had been brewing for a while and you just decided to hit the start button? Because there's a lot of people that have ideas, whether it's podcasts, a business idea, whatever it is. And there's so many things that they let get in the way. But the secret that I've learned in my life is just get started, just go. Like
Absolutely.
The days you don't want to work out, and you just somehow muster that little bit of willpower to put your foot in the gym or put your foot on the track or put your foot in the water. Those, a lot of times in my experience, have turned out to be my best training days, because you find something. You end up finding happiness and euphoria because your body's moving, or you find that extra notch in your mindset, like, wow, I have more to give. And so it's really important to kind of just show up in life. And so how did you just show up with the podcast? What was the start for you?
I guess it was twofold. One was, it had been brewing in my mind for so long that I had to do something about it. And there was just something, I can't give you a definitive answer, but something scratched in the back of my head and said, this has got to run, and it's got to run now. You can't keep brewing this idea. And I don't know where that came from. The other was just a simple conversation. And I think, again, this comes back to awareness and listening to what people say, because a friend of mine in the UK, he said, I've started a podcast, really enjoying it. I've done a couple of episodes, and again, something just went, and almost like magic, the new P&L and podcast just came together. And I thought, what about a podcast for the new P&L? Now, that could have stopped there, couldn't it? Like we all have ideas. We all think, oh, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. But that other thing, the first thing that I mentioned, just said, this is it. You either do it now and you take this opportunity with a podcast, and dip your toe in and don't make it perfect. And sometimes I think, like lots of us, I wait for the perfect time and the perfect opportunity. And, when I look back at the early podcasts that I produce, the guests were fantastic. The quality I was producing it at was sometimes questionable, I think. And if, I would be too embarrassed to tell you the hooks and the prods and the blue tack and the sellotape that was holding things together at this end. But I started it. I made a commitment to myself at that point that I was going to deliver 52 in 52 weeks. We did that. Sometimes I don't know how it was achieved, but we did it. I'm very, very proud of the content, if not the quality of the audio in some of the early versions, but I'm proud of the content. I don't know where the impetus came from. All I can say is, again, to go back to our earlier points, maybe 30 years of thinking and ideas clashing and collaborating in my head just all came together, and something magical happened for me, at least, and it is just, in inverted commas, it is just a podcast, but it's much more than that for me. It is my life's work coming together, my life's beliefs and thinking and hope and desires and interests have all collided in the new P&L podcast. Someone will probably go and listen to it and think, geez, what's the big deal? But I know from what I'm delivering, what I'm trying to convey, and yeah, it's awesome for me.
It's a hell of a ride, man. And it's fun. The experiences, the moments, this almost kind of lifelong vlog that you're creating, right? Yeah. In a sense, like moments in your life that are captured and shared with other people. When I first got started, I was the same way. My first 10 or 12 episodes, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like, I was learning. I didn't understand the camera equipment, and I didn't understand the lighting and the audio. And I had people that would give me insights and help me on that so that I could learn and grow. But that's the biggest thing is, A, it's never a perfect time to start. And B, you're never completely ready. So just get moving. And that's the part of it is anytime you do something new, it's like working out. If you've never worked out before, and the first time you pick up a weight or a jump rope or, martial arts, you're going to suck. And that's the part of it. Like that's everyone's journey. And that's a lot of times where you see where the rubber meets the road and people quit, is because people have this idea of perfection, but it takes about 10,000 hours to master something, you know?
Yeah.
And so in a year and 52 podcasts, if you're doing an hour a podcast, that's 52 hours, you know? So we have a ton of way to go. And
Yes.
to go from where you were to where you are now, you've met some incredible people. And you've had some
Yes,
incredible conversations. Who are some of the people? I know all of them impact you in one way or another, but who are some that really stand out in terms of their lessons, their life experiences, the struggles? Like, who's really resonated with you? Some of the guests that you've had on in the last 18 months.
I mean, genuinely every guest has brought something incredible to this conversation. It's difficult to pull out one or two, you know, because they've all been amazing. One woman that really inspired me was a lady over here in the UK, Ali Owen. She started the Brixton Finishing School, which is basically a training establishment for young people from diverse backgrounds to get into the advertising industry in the UK, which has always been quite traditionally old school and male and so on. What she's doing and what she's delivering and the passion that she's putting into that on an absolute shoestring. And it's not for her, it's all for these young kids who have amazing creativity and amazing ideas, but do not have the connections or the opportunity to get in on the ground floor, you know. And a lot of the advertising world in the UK is now built on internships, and quite often unpaid internships. And in a way, that's a barrier to younger, particularly working class people whose parents perhaps can't fund them through the first 6 months, 9 months of an internship, of an unpaid internship. So you're almost putting a block into who you bring into the advertising industry. And Ali wants to break down that wall, to give them an opportunity. She pairs up these people with agencies, gives them the opportunity. She's an amazing woman because she's doing it not for herself, but for other people. And her whole passion is driven for other people. And I mean, I could give you 52 examples probably of those in the last 12 months, but she's one that really stands out for me. And again, it goes back to that point we said earlier, because she is genuinely, selflessly, and passionately serving others.
It's beautiful, brother. That's servant leadership. And it's really she's living the new P&L. She's an embodiment of it.
Absolutely.
And principles and leadership and having that servant's heart and that you know, wanting to make the world a better place kind of deal, and starting in a place where she's probably felt it as a woman, you know, and in a world that was designed and put together in like this male construct. You know, we've thankfully had a nice turning around of that, where all these beautiful women that are super powerful, and I say beautiful as human beings and souls and their strength and their abilities, like they've been able to show up and show out and crush things. And so, you know, it's beautiful that we have these people that are able to kind of take some of the things that they've felt. A lot of businesses are solving problems or pains that we have, and be able to turn that around into a solution for the masses. So super incredible, man. With what you have going on these, you know, last couple months and what you're focusing towards, talk a little bit about those projects and kind of what's, you know, morphing for you in terms of where you were 18 months ago, where you're at now, and kind of the things that are coming into place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we launched the new P&L, the focus for me for the first 12 months was all about the content, to build that authoritative and credible and interesting body of content. This year 2, is about commercializing that proposition as well, working with partners to look for sponsorship or partnership in the round tables and so on that we run. We've launched the new P&L to the point in October, which is basically our weekly 10-minute analysis of the weekly new P&L interview. And that's essentially giving entrepreneurs and business leaders top tips on a Friday, you know. So we've spoken to someone on a Wednesday. They want to go back and listen to the 45 or an hour-minute interview, they can. But what we are doing is just giving them, here's a summary of the conversation. Here are the top tips that you could go away and potentially use in your business. We're pushing much more on the round tables this year. They were fabulous for us last year. We looked at data and data privacy and purpose last year, and entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. This year, we're looking at the the reimagining of retail and sustainability and more things on innovation and entrepreneurship. So that's going to be a great opportunity because we draft discussion papers off the back of that, and there's so much rich content that sits underneath those panel discussions of 6 or 7 people, and it gives people an opportunity to fire off each other as well, rather than just give their opinion to me. And some great ideas and solutions to problems have come out of the roundtables to date. So that's what we're really focusing on in the next 12 months, just trying to expand the remit, expand the conversation, having conversations with great people like yourself as well, getting the profile raised. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm just loving doing what I'm doing. And it's exciting to see it evolve,
Beautiful, brother. It's a great place to be happy and in love with what you're doing. I mean, that's the game of life. When you look back at life, I've experienced some crazy things, and I've learned from those things that you don't want to die with regret. And if it's possible, do everything in your power to really live a life well lived, and do the work, but do the play, and kind of have a balance of both. And so in regards to play, are you focused on anything for 2021 in terms of even things like, growth or projects for yourself outside of business, outside of the podcast? What are you doing to keep the mind satiated, keep the heart satiated, the soul? Like, what are some things you're tapping into?
I mean, my children both surf now. So I'm really focused on getting out surfing with them more. And this year, there's a wave pool, that's an inland wave pool that's been built about an hour from our house. And it opened sort of earlier on this year. So we're going to get down there a lot more and get out and go surfing, because that's so, as you touched on earlier, that's so integral to my well-being, is that sort of that physical as well as that mental exertion. I want to keep reading, and we've launched a book club episode, monthly book club episode in the new P&L this year, in part because we've had more and more authors approach us, and I wanted to focus on their books in a dedicated episode. But on the other side, I just want to keep consuming that information and learning and learning and learning. And I want to get back also, aside from the new P&L, to reading novels, to reading, fiction. I'm as geeky as this sounds, I love the construction of a beautiful sentence where, you read a sentence and you see every word and nothing is in excess. Every word is in there for a reason and tells a story within itself and as part of that sentence. And there are some extraordinary writers out there from a diverse range of countries now, and I want to throw myself into these books. And finally, as I said, I'm from New Zealand. I have Maori heritage as well as European heritage, and I've started learning Te Reo Maori, the New Zealand language, to sort of get back to a little bit of my New Zealand roots. Having been in the UK for 20 years, I want to re-establish that for myself and also for my children, to give them a bit more of an essence and understanding of that side of their family and where they come from, and the importance of Maori values and heritage in our lives as well.
I mean, all that is a life well lived. You're doing it with the family, and you're doing it with yourself. And it's interesting when you talk about the words that matter. And I'm very big into, when you convey a message, there's ways to do it. And even when you're writing, and there's I follow a lot of different comics, and comedy is really interesting with how much writing they have to do and how much preparation. And the great ones find a way to eliminate or cut the fat, so to speak. Instead of saying all these words to build this story, they're so great and adept at just being able to put words out and just hit the home runs. And so I think that it's all just a beautiful distillation of your life and your work, and you finally found out what you wanted to do when you grew up.
Yeah, and that's that's the one message I'd like to leave with everyone is, I've only just found, I've been looking since 16 years old for what I'm supposed to be doing. And I've only just, it's not that I haven't enjoyed the journey. I've loved everything I've done. Everything I've done, I've enjoyed, but I knew it wasn't quite where I was supposed to be. It's taken me 35 years. So there's always hope that you're going to find what you need to do, but you've got to keep your eyes on it, You've got to be aware of the opportunities, and then take that opportunity, because if I just thought about that idea of a podcast, I'd still be doing what I was doing and thinking, oh, what am I supposed to be discovering? I haven't found it yet, but I have, but it doesn't come to everyone straight away.
It's never too late. If you look up, you can get up. The great Les Brown says that. And if you have a breath in your soul, we kind of tied this all together with breath. You still have an opportunity to go out and create and experience and be part of life. And,
Yes.
you know, for my journey, it was up until a few years ago. You know, I'm 39. It took me till I was about 35-ish to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. I had done a bunch of things and tried everything. I wasn't afraid to go out and, you know, get the experience and move on. And so I think that's part of the narrative too, is like gaining these life experiences. It makes life fun, but then also it leads you to where you've taken everything in your life and it's been boiled down into the new P&L, into the podcast, into how you're doing life. And I love it, brother. I'm excited to have connected with you and be on this journey with you. And
Thank you.
I think there's so much more to come from our relationship. And brother, keep staying after it, man. You're crushing it.
Jesse, this has been a really awesome conversation. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
My pleasure, brother. You are the amazing, the mighty and powerful Paul Spiers. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.